Folks, before we get to our panel, we got some headlines. A lawsuit filed against a Northern California sheriff's deputy alleges that he shot and killed a 13-year-old just 3 seconds after ordering the boy to drop a plastic replica of an assault rifle. The family has filed a lawsuit against the veteran officer, who eyewitnesses say shot Andy Lopez as he walked near his home in Santa Rosa last October. The FBI is investigating. All right, this is an interesting item here. A former Reagan administration official has lashed out against the notion of a federal minimum wage increase, saying it makes no sense and is simply just the Black Teenage Unemployment Act. Art Laffer says African-American teens need to have a job, and a minimum wage will hurt them by increasing it. So he wants to make sure that kids, frankly, don't have to work for the minimum wage. Check this out.
Yeah, well, the minimum wage makes no sense whatsoever to me. I mean, honestly, it's just the Black Teenage Unemployment Act, and this is the very groups that we need to have jobs, not be put out of work because of a minimum wage. So I'm really very much in favor of, at least for teenagers, getting rid of the minimum wage so we can bring them back into the labor force, get them the skills they need to continue being productive members of our society for years and years.
Now, that was Art Laffer in a laugher on Fox News, and so we'll see what my panel has to say about that. We have Chris Metzler from Georgetown University. We have Horace Cooper, first of all, looking all clean there. I see you, Doc. We got Horace Cooper with Project 21. He desperately needs a pocket square because that ties, it needs some help. And Ray Baker with Politic365.com as well, looking like Assalamu alaikum on the end there. And so, did you bring a bean pie with you?
Well, Roland, as we talked about, it's our Founders Day and our centennial today, so I'm doing this to honor my graduate.
So he's so happy because Phi Beta Sigma finally became a 100-year-old fraternity. Of course, Alpha's still your daddy. But it's all good. All right, let's get right to it. You just heard this comment by Laffer. And so he says, get rid of the minimum wage for teenagers.
Mm-hmm. Makes no sense. You know, you're going to get rid of the minimum wage for teenagers, but you also want them to be employed.
I mean, so here's what I'm trying to understand.
Actually, that's a brilliant idea. The problem is black unemployment, and particularly between 16 and 25, is skyrocketing.
Okay, one second.
The goal is to make hiring black young men more attractive.
So if you get rid of the minimum wage, what are you going to pay teenagers?
You make hiring them more attractive.
No.
That's the problem right now. That is the problem.
Let me say it again. If you get, okay, answer my question. If you get rid of the minimum wage,
less than
like what?
whatever the rate is, you will pay.
So the federal rate is $7.25. Right. So what would you want to pay teenagers who work?
Whatever their skill brings to bear. That's the free market. That's what you get paid. That's what I get paid.
A teenager has a skill to bring at 16? Go ahead, Ray.
So that's why you don't get $7.25.
So one of the problems with this, and we see who it came from, right? Someone from the Reagan administration who thought that trickle-down economics was an effective idea for poor people, which it wasn't. We know that. History tells us that much. But what we're seeing is that this idea that there's a market there, that a higher minimum wage would disincentivize business owners from being able to hire people. Oh, I wouldn't want to spend that much money because I don't want to put that out. But instead what this does is lower the value of each worker. That takes more money out of their pocket, as everyone on his panel, save you, has alluded to thus far, and it really worked in a disadvantaged way for those who need their money the most.
Go to PolyFact and find out if there's ever been one advocate of the tax cuts of the Reagan administration that called it the trickle-down theory. Only you critics have said that, and you make up these false games.
Okay, first
but
of all,
the truth
I'm not wasting my time with that.
The overwhelming consensus among economists is that the minimum wage is the primary reason that young black men do not have the job opportunities that they do. That is the overwhelming.
That's not true.
Wait a minute. So because there's a minimum wage, black kids aren't getting hired?
Absolutely, and by the way, the congressional record shows in the 1920s and 30s, the congressional record shows some of them aren't either.
Are any white teens getting hired?
Some of them are not either.
Are any Hispanic teens getting hired?
The 1920s and 30s shows
the only kids not getting hired are black kids.
The white congressman that adopted the minimum wage did so to undercut black employment. It has always existed. It is not a conspiracy. It's a fact, and it requires people to learn their history.
Okay, so here's the question. The question is, what is the difference between black teenagers and white teenagers? What you said is that, just a minute, what you said is the reason that black teenagers are not being hired is because of the minimum wage, part one. Part two, you talked about economists. So here's the problem. As a PhD myself, you ask, okay, you ask me.
From a law and economics school.
Okay, you ask me from a research standpoint, you ask me a question. The question you ask me is the research question I'm going to answer. So this whole thing, every economist or the overwhelming consensus of economists.
That works on global warming, so it doesn't work on science and economics.
Of course it does. Of course. What are you talking about?
Let's be honest. Economists are sort of like the weathermen.
Yeah.
And people who do weather. Women. So you could put 100 economists in a room, and half of the room gonna be right, and half of the room gonna be wrong.
We'll have the global warming conversation later.
No.
Here's a more important and salient conversation with regards to the comments that we're talking about today. When we're asking about minimum wage, we need to see sincere and concrete efforts in order to close inequality gaps that we're facing in the United States. And for those who argue that the minimum wage will not do that, the minimum wage will disincentivize hiring folks, they do not offer any type of substitute in any way that attends to close the gap of income inequality.
That is not the truth at all. In fact, when I worked on Capitol Hill, we have tried numerous occasions to introduce a training minimum wage that would allow in inner city areas and enterprise zones.
What's the number?
To allow, it would be $2 below whatever the minimum wage is.
So you're saying
you're just recalibrating the existing minimum wage. You're not doing anything else except creating a new minimum wage that's lower.
Exactly.
That's not closing the income inequality gap.
Because you guys won't accept the reality that we have to get rid of it. So since you won't accept the reality, you come up with a political alternative.
Hold on, I gotta go to the break, but I'm really laughing. So you're saying don't do the $7.25 minimum wage. Let's go to the $5 minimum wage, and then that's the number. Okay, gotcha. Coming up more on our panel, folks.